Good evening, peace and blessings to you all. Assalamu Alaikum. That is the universal greetings of peace and blessings to you. Um, Welcome to another edition of On Point Weather Report. I am Imam Bilal, and tonight is Thursday night, 10:28 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So good evening to everyone on the East Coast, 9:28 Central Time. Good evening to anyone on the Central Standard Time. Good evening to those in the southern region of the United States, to the plains, and out to the West Coast, our family on the West Coast. Good evening, good afternoon to everyone on this Thursday evening. And as we head into our Friday, for those who are observing the month of Ramadan, we are in the month of Ramadan, which is the 9th month of the lunar calendar for the Muslims. So Ramadan Mubarak to everyone who is observing the month of Ramadan, no matter where you are in the world, and those who are celebrating the month of Lent. The month of Lent, another observance, important religious observance for our brothers and sisters of the Christian faith. So the both started on Wednesday for those who observed Ramadan starting Wednesday night. Today was our first day of fasting. For those who observed the fasting or the ritual of fasting on yesterday, being that Tuesday night was your first night of Ramadan and Wednesday was your first day of fasting, Ramadan Mubarak to you as well. So Ramadan Mubarak to everyone on this evening. I hope everyone is doing well, and let us know where you're tuned in from in the comment section so we can shout you out. As always, we ask that people share this live stream if you are tuned in, share the recording to your friends and family members, and spread the information that we will be discussing tonight very briefly, as we don't want to keep you too long tonight, but we do want to touch on something of importance tonight. But let me make sure that we are sharing this to our people. Oh, I made a mistake. Let me fix that. So please, if you are tuned in, let us know where you're tuned in from, and we can proceed and shout you out on this beautiful Thursday night here on the United States. So how's everyone doing? How is your Ramadan so far? I know it's only day one, day two, depending, but it's early on. We'll say that. It is early on. So how is everyone doing? Let us know how you're doing in the comment section so we can shout you out and bring you up to speed as to what's going on. So tonight we're discussing an important topic that a lot of people would like to know about and certainly have questions about, and the importance of the sighting of the moon. A sighting of the moon as it relates to the start of the month of Ramadan. And for those who are not familiar with Al-Islam and some of our rituals and practices, we have a lunar calendar. Muslims are also on the lunar calendar, and the Chinese New Year, the Chinese Asian community has also a lunar calendar that they observe as well, and their New Year, lunar New Year, was also on Tuesday. So Happy New Year to those who observe the lunar New Year of our brothers and sisters of our Chinese descent. We sight the moon for the beginning and end of each month in our lunar calendar, not just during the month of Ramadan. It is a practice to start the month, to know when months start based upon the moon sighting. This is very important because as it is revealed in the scripture of the Quran. It talks about time and how the moon is and sun are time. They're time markers or time stamps in time, right? And they move in orbits well calculated, and things of that nature. So Allah is talking about, God is talking about science, and He's talking about orbit, and it's talking about calculations. It's talking astronomy. Allah is talking about astronomy on one level. In the natural creation, Allah is talking about astronomy. Okay, so it is important to cite the moon, to in order to start the fast. So we have a presentation or a discussion to help us tonight to ground us in our discussion, and hopefully you all get to see that. Let me know if you all cannot see that my screen. I am sharing my screen now, so let me know if you're able to see it tonight, so we can get a better understanding of what you are seeing. If everyone is seeing my screen, put a thumbs up. If you are able to see it, inshallah, God willing. So we're going to start with the topic, chasing the crescent, the astronomy of the Hilal. The astronomy of the Hilal. The Hilal is the term for these thin new moon. We know the new moon starts, is birthed, and once it's birthed, it goes through a period of where it grows. Okay, where it grows, where it fills in, rather, right? Um, uh, but it's very important that to also to note the moon doesn't have its own light. It doesn't create its own light. What we see is a reflect using the sun as that light for us to see on Earth what the moon looks like, right? And at what point of the illumination of the moon is being lit, right? So the Hilal is the new crescent, or this very thin part of the moon that's illuminated, the illumination, right? And they talk about illumination in astronomy as far as uh, what it looks like, in terms of the uh, the moon itself, right? So the period goes to um, a waxing and waning period of the moon as well, which we'll get into discussion, about. But generally speaking, the hilal is just another term or another meaning for the crescent. And once we see the new crescent as part of the birth of the new moon. Okay. Let me see here. I want to be able to make the screen bigger for you guys so you guys can see it. Let me do that. Okay, let's go full screen, present mode. Okay. Okay, so the command, in the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad, prayers and blessings be upon him, it says, fast when you see the new moon and end the fast when you see it. But if it is obscured from you, then complete 30 days of the month of Shaban. The month of Shaban is the 8th month of the lunar calendar for the Muslims. And it's important to note here what we discussed, in reference to the starting period and the ending period. To start the ritual of fasting, we have to cite the new moon, and to end the ritual, you end it by also citing the new moon, right? Or citing the new moon, citing the moon. It's also to note that we have here new moon. On the bottom of the screen, where my cursor is at, is the new moon. As you see here, this is totally dark. Again, the moon does not have its own light. what we see is again reflection of the sun's light, and which is called the illumination of the moon's surface. At this point, when the moon is birthed, it's what we call new moon, and it's technically invisible to, you can't see it, and not with the naked eye, not with not with telescope. You won't be able to see it. So, and then we go into the period of uh, waxing. Waxing. At this portion, you see where it starts to fill in. This is where we see the formation of the crescent, the new crescent, or the Hilal. You start to see once there's some light here from the sun, we get some illumination, we're going to start to see this portion of the moon. And as the days go by, it's going to steadily fill in, or seem like it's filling in, but again, it's due to what the sun, again, what we're being shown through the moon and its phases of development in conjuncture with the sun. Okay, so the illumination period. So you'll see the first, after the new moon is birthed, some hours have gone, which we'll get into. You'll start to see the crescent, and then eventually the moon filling in. And then when the moon goes, after you count and go through the process, the moon then becomes, after it fills in, or after it becomes illuminated to a full moon, you have what we call a waning period after that. When we go backwards, if you would, we do everything backward, it goes backwards, and the moon starts to, and you start to see less and less of the moon. That's called the waning period. Okay. And any questions you could put in the chat, and we'll see if there are any questions in the chat box periodically, and let us know if you have any questions at any point of time, so we can answer them as soon as possible. All right. Let me put that. Okay, let's get back to it. So now, the conjunction. The conjunction. The conjunction is the age of the moon begins at the exact moment of what we call the conjunction. The moon passes between the Earth and the sun, usually at 5 degrees north or south of the sun. It is invisible to Earth during this phase. During this phase, when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun, it's not going to be seen. Usually, again, it's at 5 degrees north or south of the sun. So this is the conjunction period. This is the conjunction line. The sun is right here. The moon is right here, just about, and everything is aligned. At this point, is direct alignment between the sun, moon, Earth. Right? So during this period, when the new moon is birthed, or the new moon is dark, then the sun will start to beam its light and try to illuminate the moon, basically, at this point. Okay. Now, as that's happening, we call the next phase the struggle for light, and why the new moon is obscured by what they call glare, right? The sun at this point, when you're looking at this horizon, when you're looking straight to the horizon to sight the moon, between Maghrib, after the fourth prayer of the day, Maghrib, this is around sunset period of time. And at this point of time, we're looking for where in the sky for the moon, where the sun sets. At this point, you have to have some conditions have to be favorable in order for you to see it. I'm talking about the Hilal, or the crescent, the new crescent, which is this right here. This right here is already hard to see because you have a sun that's setting to create darkness, and then you have a sun that's also giving off its own glare. which by the naked eye is going to make it already a little hard to see. So this sky right here, this is a natural sky. The natural sky, if you have a natural sky with no artificial uh with no artificial light that's obscuring, like big city lights, obviously no cloud cover. No clouds will be helpful. If you have cloud cover in this area or covering this area of view, a vantage point, you're not going to be able to see it. It's going to be hard to see it unless the clouds move, which does give a chance for you to see the Hilal or the new crescent before the moon sets. Right? There's a period between after Maghrib, after the fourth prayer, about 15, 20 minutes or so, to where we can see the Hilal or the new crescent. And it's a short window, or it's a short window of opportunity. If you don't see it within those 15, 20 minutes, you miss it. You just can't see it, either because your sky is obscured by artificial light. It could be hazy, could be cloudy, it could be completely raining outside. Obviously, you're definitely not going to see it at that point. So these are a number of different factors to why you may not see the Hilal, even though it's been birthed, is matured after a certain period of hours. After new moon is matured to the Hilal, you have a level of maturity, but you still may not be able to see it. So the conditions have to be what some would say ideally perfect or ideal for seeing the Hilal. Yes, there is to be clear, there is a sunset time and there's a moonset time, just like there's a sunrise time and a moonrise time too. Now, there is a formula to this. There's another formula to this, very important. It's called the visibility formula. To confirm a sighting, 3 astronomical variables must align: age or time, elongation, angle, altitude, height. There's us, our eye, our vantage point on Earth. 3 things create this visibility triangle: age and time of the maturity of the new moon. Elongation is just fancy for angle, or a scientific term for angle, and altitude, height, from upon which you are seeing the moon, upon which on the surface, where's your altitude? Where are you standing from, right? Is our altitude. Now, the variable 1, elongation, the angular distance required to reflect sunlight. Here you have the sun, Earth surface, Earth, sun, Earth, eyeball, us. Then from sun, you have this angle right here. This is the angle of elongation. Sun is here, and if we follow the angle, the sun, we see the moon birthed into the new crescent Hilal here. Now, to see the Hilal based upon what we just explained, the triangular, the visibility formula. This is based upon the visibility formula. To see it on the elongation, unaided, you have what we call unaided eye, which is not without a telescope, and then with a telescope, you have 8 degrees and 8 degree, 10 degree along this elongation. At some point, 10-degree separation between the sun and the moon, the elongation angle 10 degrees, right? And then same thing with the 8 degrees. From this vantage point, you will be able to see the sun. The growth rate of that is 0.55 degrees per hour, right? So in terms of the angle itself, right? You just need enough sun to reflect the light onto the moon. Basically, we need enough at an angular distance of the sun to reflect its light on the moon in order to see the Hilal. Basically, is what this means. So, variable two, remember we talked about, is the age of the moon. There is the new moon phase, birth at 0 hour, which is the conjunction period. It's called the birth. Remember, we talked about the conjunction period when the new moon is born and is alignment with the earth and to the sun. Everything is in alignment. At this point, it's 0 hour. It was just born, or it's just, it's dark. As the moon matures, meaning that as we see more illumination, see more of the moon's surface starting to get more lit based upon that elongation, based upon that illumination of the sun to the earth, the moon's surface. At hour 15th, the 15th hour of the moon already being birthed as the new moon, at hour 15, you will be able to see it with a telescope. The Hilal with a telescope. But you won't be able to see it to hour 18. 18 hours it would have to be in the sky, up there in space, to see it on the Earth's surface with an unaided eye. You need 18 hours. Anything before this, you're not going to be able to see it with you're not going to be able to see it before 15 hours. It's impossible. For 15 hours, it's going to be very much getting impossible to see it. Even with a telescope, you have to have a strong telescope, but it even gets harder and harder and harder if you go way below 15 hours. It's not at maturity yet, and is not at that maturity in terms of that illumination from that light from the sun. Right? So you need to have 15 hours in order to see that with the telescope. And then it needs to be 18 hours in order to see it with an unaided eye. And then, as you see at the end of the chart, this is the Hilal, the crescent. At this point, it's visible for anybody to see with unaided eye. The other variable is variable 3, which is altitude and location. Altitude and location. All right. At this point, the moon must be at least 5 degrees above the horizon at sunset to clear atmospheric haze. Very important. And you see here on the difference, the moon has to sit just above the Hilal, this new crescent has to sit just above the atmospheric zone, or what they call atmospheric interference zone. Because at this level of the atmosphere, you have cloud cover, you have haze, it can be easily obscured at this point in this zone. The westward advantage, the moon ages as time passes. Observers for the west see an older, wider, and higher crescent than those in the east on the same night. So, what that means is that if you, for instance, live in California, right? So we're going to do place. If you live in California and let's just say you have perfect viewing night. Let's say you have a perfect viewing night. No cloud cover, there's nothing obscuring your view. You are able to see the Hilal. You can see it looks different. It's older, it's more mature, it's wider, it's higher in the sky. But as the rotation goes, right, and the moon makes its and everything moves again. Allah says everything is time and place. Time markers of time, stamps for time, right? As things move from the west coast, from the west coast sees it to when it gets to central time or central portion of the United States, rather they're going to see the same moon. By the way, it's going to be the same moon. It's not a different moon. It's the same moon. But what we're saying is, as time passes, remember, we go from 0 hours, 15 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours, 22 hours, 24 hours. You're going to see an older moon. And then by the time it gets to the East Coast, you're going like it's just going to look slightly different, but it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same moon, right? Same moon. Is that what we're looking for? But this is part of the time that we're talking about. That's a timestamp. Okay. And this is just recapping, recapping the process of citing the Hilal, the citing standard, right? Elongation, 8 degrees for 8 degrees or better, or greater, greater than 8 degrees or 8 degrees or 8 degrees or greater than 8 degrees to see it with an instrument, and at least 10 degrees or more to see it with the naked eye. Altitude, at least 5 degrees above the horizon, and timing post sunset observation, meaning about that 15 minutes or so after Maghrib, that sweet spot between when Maghrib comes in and just about before the sun completely sets, right? Just before. So there's a window between Maghrib prayer and the eventually sunset and eventually getting dark, completely dark. So our case study is what this year, this Ramadan, as our case study for our discussion tonight. This was the visibility chart that astronomers had published on major astronomy sites for the date of February the 17th, right? The date of February 17th. At this point, the color red covers everyone from North America to South America to Africa to Europe, the Middle East, the Far East, Australia, Indonesia, etc., etc. Covers basically the whole Earth, basically. The red on this basically means the moon set occurs before sunset. The moon set occurs before sunset. And the moon is too young and too close to the sun for being sighted. Too young. Remember, we said it has to be either between 8 and 10 degrees for it to be visible with the optical aid. Yes. They say at least starting at 8 degrees, which should be somewhere here. But ideally, from 10 to 15 hours, to see it with telescope. They say you can see it starting with 8. At 8, you have to have a very strong telescope to see it at 8. You still have to have a strong telescope to see at 10 to 15, but 10 to 15 is like, okay, we can see it with a telescope, right? And for it to be seen with a naked eye, you have to have, again, between this 15-hour to 18 hours of time of maturity of the moon in order to be seen, in order for the Hilal to have a chance to be seen. And also at this point, it says it's too close to the sun. It's too close to the sun. So if it's too close to the sun, you're not going to be. It's going to be a glare. You're not going to be able to see it. It's going to be impossible to see it with it being too close to the sun at this point. And moonset occurs before sunset. That's another crucial point of conversation, is the moonset and sunset times. We'll get to that in a second. Now, the analysis of February the 18th. The next night, this was Tuesday night. This is Wednesday night. Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Everybody is green for the most part, except for I think this is parts of Asia or whatnot going for the eastward. A little harder for them to see. They would have to see it with an optical aid. The teal zone, if it's teal, is visible with optical aid. This covers Asia. Okay, but for the most part, North America, South America, almost all of Africa, the Europe, UK, down to the far Middle East and the Far East, getting into India, etc. Everybody was green, meaning that perfect. Again, moon is mature. We have if you have good good atmospheric conditions, you can see it. They see the Hilal. At this point, it's easily visible to the unaided eye, which covers all the Americas and into Africa. At this point, we had multiple sightings of the moon last night in the North America, from the East Coast to the Midwest to the West Coast. Because it became easily visible at this point. It wasn't obscured by the sun. It wasn't too young. It was mature enough, and it was easily appeared in the sky for us to see it. Right. So for those who saw it, they were able to see the Hilal in the sky at the horizon. And then we covered key factors affecting lunar visibility, calculations and sightings. We talked about so there's some variables and nuances. We talked about atmosphere, clouds, humidity, and pollution can override mathematical visibility. That we discussed that. Atmosphere conditions have to be perfect, minus all these things we mentioned, in order for you to see the moon, right? You have orbital variance, which the moon's elliptical orbit can shift calculations by +1 or -1, meaning that there's this window. There's a window of error or variance in this case, not even error, of variance, right? So even for Maghrib time, or our prayer times, but especially from, like, let's say for instance for Maghrib, which is our fourth prayer of the day, it has a variance, plus or 1 minus, like, in terms of when, say, while we're fasting for the month of Ramadan, right? The prayer calendars might have a slightly different time. Most of these prayer apps and schedules, are, you have to give them plus or minus variance based upon the moon sighting. You must calculate it, because they're not 100% accurate. They're not 100% accurate. These apps are not 100% accurate. Okay, so you have to give it some period of time. This is why Imam Muhammad, rahimahullah, instructed us as a community to wait a couple of minutes before we break the fast around Maghrib time, to account for that plus or variance, right? To account for the variance. As the clocks go off, everyone's clocks may go off at 5:35, but then someone's clock may go off at 5:33, or someone's clock may go off at 5:37 or something like that, right? So to account for that, there might be some variance here with the calculations of the moon. You give yourself that time frame before you just break fast instead of just saying, oh, 5:25, I'm breaking fast at 5:25. No, 5:26, 5:27. Give it that period of time because again, to account for the plus or one minus, and it's also easy too to go out and look at this horizon too with the human element, with the naked eye to see, you know, uh, um, is it Maghrib time or not? Because before we had all the science and technology, at our disposal now, that's all the earlier believers had was, what they saw with their naked eye, and then they calculated based upon that. They counted the days. I mean, counted the nights. They counted after that to understand, the patterns of the moon and the months and etc. Which the months were based upon when the moon was sighted, and when and etc. So this was how they developed the charts or the tables for the prayer. So our key takeaways tonight: new moon begins at the conjunction, but it is initially invisible. Two, visibility requires elongation between 8 and 10 degrees and altitude of 5 degrees. Three, Western observers generally have a higher probability of the sighting. And four, physical sightings validates the start of the Islamic month. You have to see it. In the beginning of any month, you have to be able to see the physical sighting of the moon. So again, fast when you see it. Our celestial precision and human observation. So we, inshallah, hopefully got something out of this presentation tonight. Um, um, try to cover as much ground as possible with this, without confusing anyone. Again, we're here to answer questions and take questions. But the importance is, excuse me, the importance is to be able to understand this is a ritual month, right? Um, and how we understand being a ritual month is that if we miss days in the month of Ramadan because we're sick or we're traveling, whatnot, you can make up those days after the month of Ramadan is over, just as long as it's before the next Ramadan, the next year, or next year, right? So, and it's important to also note that when we're citing the Hilal, that everyone should know or want to know the basics and the basis of being able to cite the moon for yourself, so you understand how it works from the astronomical science perspective, because there is a science to it. As much as this is part of the the way for the excuse me, for the Muslims, it is part of our practice, right, of the ritual. But there's also a science to the ritual, and there's a science attached to it, right? Our way of life does not disclude or discount science. We are to study science because it's all throughout creation. This is all we was all talking about God's creation just now. This is all God's creation. And in the scripture, in the Quran, it points to all of the things that we talked about tonight. Orbit, time. These are all factors that are all mentioned in the Quran. All factors. We can pull verses and pull ayats to show this. It's all mentioned there. So um, it's important for us to be able to understand why, the who, what, when, why, and how, the science of it. And I'm hoping that this presentation tonight, a short presentation, allowed for some a little bit more clarity as to what's the astronomical science behind studying the Hilal, and answer some questions about how we go about it, and may it be of benefit for those who see fit to cite the moon, inshallah, on your own, God willing. All right, that is it. That is all we wanted to cover tonight. Actually, more than likely be back tomorrow night for another discussion in reference to what is being monitored as another possible uh, snow or winter event, I would say, for the Northeast and parts of the Mid Atlantic region for Sunday going into Monday time period of this weekend, later this weekend going into Monday. So we'll go give it till tomorrow to go live because there's still some data that's still coming in, and don't want to make sure we have the newest latest information to share and make sure it's accurate to share. But there is some information coming out. There's a lot of things swirling around the internet now about snowstorms and blizzards. Please um, take it with a grain of salt right now, because data is still coming in. On the West Coast time, we're still waiting for a piece of energy to come in from the West Coast. That's still out to sea. We're waiting. It's a lot of moving parts with this situation. It's not as cut and dry as some other the past situation storms were. So bear that in mind. So if you see headlines talking about blizzards and snowstorms and accumulations already, don't take it too serious. Don't take it serious because it's way too early to start talking about those things. Tomorrow we have much clearer guidance, a much more clear understanding to share. Okay. So with that being said, have a great rest of your evening. If you're breaking fast now or you're praying, hopefully everyone had a great iftar. And so far, a great start to the month of Ramadan. And we will see you all, inshallah, God willing, tomorrow. All right. Peace and blessings, everyone. Good night. Assalamu alaikum.